and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's video, we are going to talk about deploying your serverless applications using the new SAM pipelines and GitHub Actions. So this is a recurrent problem that a lot of people working with serverless have. Making your serverless application is very simple, but when it comes to building the CICD pipeline, it becomes hard. And you need to understand, for example, if you're using CloudFormation, building that template, or if you're using some third-party providers like GitHub Actions, also building a template. And it's not only building the template, but also creating more infrastructure in your AWS account in order to make this deployment secure. So for example, if you're using a third-party service, you might need to create a new AWS user that will be the one that will have programmatic access, and you will give the access key and the secret key to these third-party services like GitHub or Gitlabs or Jenkins or whatever you're using in order for this CI/CD service to deploy your application. And that takes a while. I have made a couple of videos about Gitlabs and how to create these stages and creating the user and all these things in a video a long time ago. The links are in the description box, so if you want to see how much work is involved. But luckily, a few weeks ago, SAM launched a new capability that is the AWS SAM pipelines. And this capability is great. It builds the pipeline based on some templates that a pipeline has, so you can basically get started very fast with your own GitLabs, GitHub, CodePipeline, Jenkins pipeline with few lines. So we are going to do that today. In this video, I will show you how to create an AWS SAM application. We are going to create a pipeline that will deploy using GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions, SAM pipelines is available until now for GitLabs, GitHub Actions, Jenkins and CodePipeline. So if you would like me to do similar video, but for example for code pipelines, let me know in the description box. I think with code pipelines it will be very powerful because this is something totally integrated in AWS, so you can do quite a lot of things. So first of all, if you have not heard about GitHub Actions, what is that? Well, GitHub Actions is a feature from GitHub, the repository, the remote repository of code that we all love, that allows you to automate your software workflows. So GitLab had this feature for a long time ago, and that was one of the reasons I was using it for my videos, that give you some kind of automation that you can write a template and basically push that into this GitLab environment, and it will run the template. Basically, you will have a small machine that will be running all these commands for you. Now, GitHub has created similar thing, and this is very handy because GitHub is the repository I always use for all my projects. So having this capability of being able to deploy my applications directly from GitHub with the integrations from the feature branches and following the Git flow is something that I'm very excited about, because I like to follow the Git flow kind of idea where we have a main branch that is the one that is always in production, and then we can have features that we are building branches and we want to have some kind of test environment. We will test whatever we are building. So this is what we are going to do today. So in order to follow this demo, you need to have an AWS account. You need to have the latest SAM CLI because, well, GitHub, because SAM pipelines is quite new. So if you have not updated it, do it now so you can follow along. You also need to have a GitHub account because we are going to put some repos there. So what we are going to build? Well, we are going to grab a code of a project I have built some time ago, and we are going to build create a new repo because I want you to follow from there. We are going to create a GitHub Actions pipeline with 2 stages, one that will deploy to development, one will deploy to production, and this will be all happening in the main branch. And then as we develop new features, we will create feature branches. These branches need to start with the feature word, and that will create their own environment in as a CloudFormation stack based on our serverless application, that then later on we can merge that branch either through a pull request or just by hardcore merging, and that will end up in production. So these stages, when you look at them, they look a little bit simple because, well, it's testing. First is building the package, then is deploying to testing, then there is integration test, and then there is deploying to production. So basically it's the same artifact deployed into the places. And then if you look at the script, the integration tests are empty. So here it's up to you to build your own integration test. So if it passed, then it goes automatically to production. So this is a CICD totally automated. There is no human interaction. I imagine with GitHub Actions, you can create like a flag that somebody needs to approve the moving to production, or you can create other types of pipelines, like you will have a branch for development, and then when you merge into production, it will go to production. So you can play around with whatever you want, but these are the templates that comes automatically from some pipelines that are thought that are the best fit for serverless applications. But as always, you can always modify them and do whatever you need. So if you're here and you're watching this, please like my video. A lot of you watching are not subscribed yet, so do go and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know, what is your favorite CI/CD tool? Gitlabs, GitHub, Jenkins, CodePipelines, what it is? Let me know in the comments. Let's continue. So now let's go to the code and see this in action. So as I mentioned before, we are going to grab an existing piece of code. So you don't need to code all this yourself. You can grab basically for this demo any piece of code. I will be using a step function kind of application that we were using for the synchronous step function. So if you want to know how I build that, I'll leave you the link in the description box. So what I will do, I will clone this repository and then we can start. I will clone that repository into my computer and into a project with a different name so it doesn't get mixed up. So I will call it SAM pipelines. So I will get into there and open this in Visual Studio Code. And there you can see there is a lot of Lambda functions. There is a template YAML with the definition of the step function and the Lambda function and all the resources that we need. And then there is the definition of the step function where you can see what this application is doing. But that's something for another video. I will not do anything with the code per se now. It's just to have something to deploy. The first thing I want to do is I will install all the functions, so make sure that all the dependencies are brought in because, well, if not, the deployment will fail. So I will just run npm install into all the free Lambda functions. So if you are getting this code, do the same so all the dependencies are here. The most important one is the make payment function. That is the one that it really has a dependency. The other two are empty projects, but yeah, so that one has a dependency and you need to bring it in. And the next thing we're going to do is to do some deploy to make sure that this deployed is easier to do it locally than to test it in the GitHub action. So I will just deploy this with some pipelines local. I will fast forward because this works. So I recommend you to do the same. So after it's deployed, or you can now test it if you want, but it works, we can go back to GitHub and create a new repository. I will make it private and I will call it some pipelines test. So there is where I will be running my CICD. This code is really not available. Only the starting application will be available in the link that is in the description box, but the rest is created by some pipelines. So it's generated. I don't really do any code. So that's for you to know. So I will push whatever is in my computer into that new repo. If you got the repo from GitHub already, don't forget to remove that origin, because if not, it will fail. And then you can basically add the new origin of the new repository that we created, the SAM pipelines test. So we can commit something and then push it, and then everything is in the GitHub repo that we just created. So good, now we can start working a little bit on our pipeline. So I will run the SAM pipeline init -- bootstrap. And this is because it's the first time I'm running this command, the SAM pipeline. So the bootstrap will create all the different things that you need in order to work with SAM pipeline. So it will create a user, and this user will be the pipeline user. That is the one that, in this case, we are using GitHub, will be deploying into the AWS account. So you will get an access key, ID, and secret that then you will put in GitHub. So that's the user. It will create it automatically. You will have some roles and some buckets, and all that is done by the bootstrap. And so that's important. So if you already have done the bootstrap, then you can just run some pipeline in it and it will work. But now this is the first time, so we are running bootstrap. And then what you can do is to pick either the quick start pipeline template, that is what we are going to do, or if you have a custom pipeline template already, you can share the location with this and it will kind of work everything for you. So I will pick the quick start pipeline template and we are going to use that. The next step is to decide which CICD system you're going to use. These are the 4 supported until now, maybe more are coming later. Jenkins, GitLab, CICD, Github Actions, and CodePipeline. For now, we are going to select GitHub Actions, but if you want me to do CodePipeline, let me know, or Jenkins or GitLab as well. After we pick that, then we are going to start the setup process, and the setup process will define 2 stages. So we will need to define the stages and then we will have to do some configuration. So there are 2 stages. Here it says that it's recommended to use different AWS accounts for this, but I will be using the same AWS account for the stages. But yes, it's a good practice to separate your development and your production, so you can do that very easily with this. If they're sharing the same account, you will have the same user. So when we define the first stage, we need to put a name. I will put dev, and then it will ask you which AWS credential from that local machine it will use in order to create all the bootstrapping that you need in order to be able to use CICD and GitHub Actions. So this is locally, it only happens once, and I will be picking the default that is going to my AWS account. But this is all your, it will list all the credentials that you have configured in that local machine. Then you will need to pick in which region. I will be using Ireland, so I will get that. And then you have different ARNs that you can input: Amazon resource name for your IAM user, your execution role, and your CloudFormation execution role. So if you have one, you can input them now. If you don't, you can leave them empty, and some pipelines will create it for you. I will leave everything empty. And the same happens for the bucket where the artifacts are going. When SAM is creating the artifacts for deploying, it's putting everything in an S3 bucket. If we are using containers images, then we need to tell yes, but now we are not using. And then finally, you can verify that everything is correct, and you can proceed to create all the bootstrap for the dev stage in this account. This takes a little while, so I will fast forward until this is done, and we'll see for the production stage. So when this is ready, you will see that there is the IAM user credentials. You will see the access key and the secret key. Please save those in a file because you will need them later to configure GitHub. So that have in mind, that will be the only place where they will be appearing if you're having one AWS account to deploy with. So after stage 1 is defined, we are moving to stage 2, and this is prod. So we are going to define that. And again, it will ask you again for a name, and then what kind of AWS credentials will you be using from locally to create all this bootstrapping in that account. So I will be again using the same one, but if you're using different accounts for prod and dev, you might need to choose a different one. Then again, it will ask you from which region you want to deploy. You pick the one. I will be picking Ireland. And then again, the ARN for the pipeline execution role, the CloudFormation execution role, and the artifact bucket. So everything is there. And if you're using a container image, you will see the summary, and then you're ready to create the prod stage. So it's going to create that in your AWS account. So I will fast forward this until everything is created. So when everything is created, now we will start in the configuration of the GitHub specific things. So the first thing, this is to build the template of the GitHub Actions. So the first thing we need to do is to give what is the name that you're going to use when you configure the GitHub secret. So we will just use whatever is in the default. So that's good. But you will see where that comes into play. Basically, when we define the GitHub secrets for our ID, access key ID, and the access key secret, we will be referring them with this name. So that's why it's important, the name. Then if you have another branch that is not called main, now you need to put a name to it. I have the main branch, so that's good. And then finally, what is the path for your template YAML? In my case, it's in the root, but if you have it inside some directory, now is the time to complain. And now we will start configuring each of the stages for a pipeline. So the first one is dev, and I will put a name for the application that will be deployed into our AWS account, some pipelines dev. And then we have prod, and again, I put the name for that pipeline, some pipelines prod. Poof, that's it. Now our pipeline script template is created, and you will be able to find it in .github directory workflows, and then there is the pipeline YAML, and it's a whole bunch of things that you will know in a second. We will go over it in a second. So again, now we will need the access key and secret access key. So have that close to you and go to your GitHub repo, settings and secrets, and there you can add repository secrets. The name is very important of the secret. That's the one that we defined early in the configuration. In this case, is the AWS access key ID. If you have any doubt, you can always check the pipeline template. And then the value is the one that you got from the creation of the user in the script. Now everything should be ready. So we go back to our code, and I will make one small change so we can push something into GitHub. I will add this, I don't know, exclamation mark in a console log. It doesn't matter. And this will push also the pipeline. So now we will be testing what happens when we push to main. So you can go to in the GitHub repo to actions, and you will see it now that there is one workflow running, and it's queue because it takes a little while to pick up. And you will see that there is a little drawing that has different stages. There is the initial test, then there is build and package, there is deploy testing, that's deploying to the dev stage. Then there is the integration test, and finally there is the deploy to production. So all the different stages will run right now when we push to main. So we can go inside each of these categories and see how everything is running, and we can see the logs and we can see everything that is going on. So this is pretty neat, because if something fails, you will be able to see what is going on. So for example, now it's building and packaging, so we can go inside and see the logs, and all the different kind of tasks are individually separated. And all these jobs and tasks are kind of linked together in the definition, the pipeline definition, that some pipelines are created for us. You can go and correlate them so you understand what is each of these stages and the steps that this deployment is going through. And then we can also see the deployment, and it takes a while. But for example, when it starts to deploy, you can go to your AWS console into CloudFormation, and you will be able to see the pipeline, the SAM pipeline step, that is the development application that is deploying when we are deploying to main, the first stage. And then you will see that something is created there. And if now that we are in CloudFormation, you can see that there's two new stacks, the AWS SAM CLI managed prod pipeline resources, and the same for the dev. And these are the two stacks that are created when we do the bootstrapping and we create the branches and the users and the configuration for each of the branches. So the dev is managing the pipeline user, the role, different roles, and the bucket artifact, and prod is also doing the roles and the bucket artifact. So you can go and explore those. But let's continue with the deployment. Now the app should be deployed in dev, and now it's running integration tests. The pipeline that SAM configures, sadly, it doesn't have any integration test. It's empty, so integration tests are kind of pointless. So we can check what is going on in that pipeline YAML. So if we make everything a little bit small, we collapse all the jobs, we can see that each of these jobs corresponds to the boxes that we saw, and the almost last one is integration test, and really nothing is happening. So you can write there your integration test. This is like command line. So if you want to do a curl or whatever, or you run some script, you can do it here. I'm more than happy to show you how to run integration tests in GitHub Actions. I have never done it, but I have done it for code pipelines, and it's pretty fun. So I imagine this might be in a way similar idea, but let me know in the comment box below if that's something interesting. And you can see all the different shops with its tasks that kind of align to what we are seeing here. So it will deploy to production, and it will do exactly the same that it did for testing, but now we will create a new application in our AWS console, a new stack that is called SAM pipelines prod, and then it will be deployed. So if we don't have integration test, this pipeline is kind of pointless, because dev and prod are exactly the same, and they are kind of connected by something that is not doing anything. So yeah. So writing the integration test is quite important, because this will create an automated deployment. So you will push to prod, it will do the development into dev, it will do some testing, and if everything is good, it will push to prod. If something fails, it will not go to prod. So this will be automated. So what happens if I want to test things that are not ready to go to prod? Well, that's a great thing from this. So if we create a feature branch, so we just create a branch that starts with the word feature, then some pipeline is configured to create a whole environment in our AWS account for that. So this is something I find it super cool, because I think it's so cool that we can play with features. So I just created a feature branch, and I pushed basically the same into there. And then if we go to actions, we will see that there is a feature branch now running. And you will see from the two branches that is there, the build and package, and the build and deploy feature. Now the build and deploy feature is the one that will be running. There are arm of the tree will not run, and what this will do is we'll build and then deploy the artifact into its own application, and the name of this application of the stack in CloudFormation will be feature number 1. That is exactly the name of the feature branch. So this is great. Now we can go create our feature branches, test it in our own environment, and then we can basically test everything like we're in production, and when we're ready, we merge into our main branch. So that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed. I think this is something super powerful to accelerate your serverless application development. I think this is a really cool feature, and I'm super excited to see this type of features built into SAM, because everybody needs to deploy their application and good practices are important. So to summarize, now you have a dev and a prod stage, and you have integration tests in the middle that you need to figure out. If you like me to do more in depth on how to build this integration test with Github Actions, let me know in the comment box below. I have not explored that yet, but it's something maybe we can figure out together. I have done that a lot with code pipelines, but not with GitHub Actions, so that's something we might need to work on together, but I'm happy to explore if that's something you're interested in. So I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!